My name's Suzanne Smith. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Mongolia from 2005 to 2007. I'm a second-generation Peace Corps volunteer. My father served in Iran from 69 to 71 in Shiraz. And in Peace Corps, I always knew I wanted to do Peace Corps, and in Peace Corps I was a health volunteer, and I lived and worked in Ulaanbaatar, or UB, which is the capital city, and I also got an opportunity to spend 2 months in Hovd, which is the capital of a province of Hovd in Mongolia, and it's in far western Mongolia. Quick description of my service: I was, as a health volunteer, placed with the United Nations Populations Fund, UNFPA, which does reproductive health and population census assistance within countries, and I got very lucky and got to see almost every province within Mongolia, and got to really see the countryside and experience the people in very different ways.
So, Mike Birdie, and I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I served with my wife, Ashley, and we were in Bayankhongor, Mongolia. It's about 600 kilometers west of the capital, Ulaanbaatar, commonly mispronounced as Ulaanbaatar. And it's a beautiful state. It borders China on the south, and we happen to be at the convergence of the three main geographic zones in Mongolia, right at the northern edge of the Gobi Desert and the rolling steppes, and then just a little ways north was the Hanggai, or forested region. 2 days after arriving at site, we're kind of overwhelmed because my coworkers are all there, and they're taking us around town, introducing us to the police, and they're just a big boisterous group of women, and they're amazingly outgoing, and they think that we're going to be fluent, and we're not. But we're adjusting, you know, and they're like, come on, we're going on a trip. And I'm like, where are we going? They're like, we're going to the countryside. And I'm like, well, can you be more specific? Is there a town? And Peace Corps is like, you're not supposed to travel for 3 months at site. So we're kind of torn on what to do. And they're like, be at work in 2 hours. We're going to the countryside. And I'm like, okay. So this is my boss, and she's telling me I got to do this, you know. And she has that kind of demeanor where I wanted to listen. I wanted to make her happy. So we show up, and you know, we've been a little bit coddled during training. We hadn't really had to travel the Mongolian way yet. And we get there, and there's one van about the size of a traditional Volkswagen, you know, the square vans. And I know there's like 22, 23 people going, and I'm like, well, where's the other vehicle? They're like, oh, there is no other vehicle. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're all going in there? They're like, yeah, of course. You know, and like all volunteers get to experience that, but we hadn't yet, you know, and we're like, no way. And then I see them rolling on a keg of fermented mare's milk that's coming on as well. So, keg of fermented mare's milk, 23 adults, 2 babies, one of whom is breastfeeding right in front of me. So I got comfortable with that quickly. And there we are, off to the countryside. You know, and we end up going to this beautiful lake, Batsagan Lake, and we met up with a student that goes to this school where I'm going to work, and he is our host for the weekend, and his kids come out with us, and they build sand gairs instead of sand castles, and gairs are the traditional round felt tents that Mongolians live in, which we thought was just amazingly adorable. And we wrestle, and I make a lot of friends by wrestling, which is kind of the Mongolian way. And we drink air egg, and we sing songs, and we just kind of realized we're going to be okay if we just let go of our reservations. We're not going to know what's always going to happen or where we're going specifically, but if we just trust the people that are here to work with us and let go, it's going to be all right, you know. And that was a good feeling. I was lucky enough. I'm Mike, Peace Corps volunteer. I served in Mongolia with my wife Ashley, and I had probably agreed upon by the other volunteers like the best director, you know, at my school in Peace Corps Mongolia. So she was awesome. And shortly after I arrive, she introduces me to Siddiv Stern. And Siddiv Stern is in charge of an association of parents of disabled children. I have one hand, but I've never really thought much about disability or having a disability. I grew up in a very sports-centered town, and I was excelled at sports in high school and wrestled in college, and I always was taught you can do whatever you want to do, and had the tools to help me do that. The attitude was a little bit different in Mongolia towards disability, and there were a lot of disabilities that were complicated due to childhood meningitis and other reasons, and so a lot of those kids didn't get out to get exercise and play on sports teams, or they didn't. Their dropout rate in public schools was tremendously higher than the average population. So we met this really passionate woman who we ended up working with over the course of 2 years to help her get the seed money and the business plan. And we met with the governor 3 times, which was pretty cool. It was much easier to meet with the governor in my state than it would be for me to meet with Governor Jay Nixon in Missouri. I guess kind of one of the benefits of being a Peace Corps volunteer. We're in a country where it's really well respected. But we were able to help her realize her vision, which was to build this center where kids could get occupational and physical therapy, and parents could get a respite from care for a while, do some of their errands, go to the market in the capital, and then they could also work with educators so that they could come up with better strategies so that these kids succeed in the classroom. And it didn't actually get built till after I left. But I've seen the pictures and seen it operating, and there's a partnership with a group in Australia that comes in and provides training once or twice a year, so they continue to advance what they're doing there. And it wasn't the kind of thing that Peace Corps wanted us to do, I don't think, in terms of scope of the project. So I just kind of thought of it as like, this is something I happen to be here and needs to be done. I'm not necessarily doing it as a Peace Corps volunteer. I'm just doing it as a guy that happens to be in Mongolia. We happen to be able to get connected to some money and some people to make this happen. It's a worthwhile project. And it really helped me rethink how fortunate I've been with the attitudes of people I've encountered toward disability and access and the things we have in this country, and how that is so different around the world, and why it's important to change that. To provide the same kind of access, the same type of resources, the same type of education to folks of, whatever background, disability or not disability. I don't even like the word. I say differently abled. We're all differently abled.
Amanda Carson, Mongolia, 2005-2007. I was out in eastern Mongolia in Choibilsin, which is the 4th largest city, but still very, very rural. Well, Mongolia is most known for its endless winters. One time in particular, I went out to a friend's site in late April thinking that, the winter was over and it would be a beautiful spring visit, and encountered a snowstorm on the way there. So the winter never ends in Mongolia.